Today, on top of corporate insurance, there's also increasingly stuff like learning benefits, so allowances.
I don't know if people think that's a benefit lah.
Yeah.
budget 就是要读册
Government also give it. It's called Skills Future. Correct.
Okay. Upskill. Woo, upskill. Woo. Welcome back to Wise and Shine. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut.
And I'm Dawn, SGBudgetBabe. Today we're going to talk about a very budgeting finance topic that is more relevant to your career. And I think for any of you who after this episode you apply the tips and tricks that we're going to talk about, if you get a pay raise, please help to contribute. You can donate to us so we can
maybe
continue
set
running
up a Patreon.
more episodes.
Set up Patreon. Link here.
Pay now, pay now.
Put the pay now QR,
correct.
right? Like not like the charity performance. I think got the QR down here, right? Oh my goodness.
So today's episode, what we're going to cover and investigate is really how to negotiate for a higher salary. And of course, the best people to have on set with us to talk about this topic would be...
Nice to meet you. Puay from Glintz, Singapore headquartered, venture back.
Say already also paiseh, right?
Venture back HR business operating in the region. Southeast
Wait,
Asia.
is this like a com standard? Like it's
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so you all set a com standard. You all
Got,
must
got.
have this keyword.
Yeah, must have.
Okay. Mishmash. Okay. Yeah.
And Rakaesh from the TFC team.
who is in tech and
Yeah.
can talk a little bit more about career maneuvers.
Yeah,
So we're
making a
going to
lot
talk
of
about
money
it.
in the tech space. Yeah.
He was saying it's his credit. He worked hard for it, right?
I do.
So we're going to talk about these maneuvers and what you guys can realistically apply on your own. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's roll.
Okay, let's roll. Yeah. So, what are some tips and tricks like about pay raise?
Straight to it, yeah.
Of course.
No time to wait. We are
These guys got no time. Our listeners no time.
Today, Sintai. Yeah. So what is the tips and tricks?
I think the first thing that I would probably say is that most often most people don't have a good understanding or the right understanding of their market value. That's probably where it usually starts. So I think the first tip or trick, I would to borrow your phrase, is always get an up-to-date understanding of your market value, right? And there's a number of ways you can do this. Obviously, you can research, right? There's open public sources where that is available. If there's not, then I think you try to talk to two categories of people. One is, of course, HR people. So that would be the recruiters and whatnot, like Glintz ourselves, because we speak to a lot of companies and also job seekers, and we have a sense. In fact, every year we also publish a compensation report, right? So we have a sense as to where the range of salaries would be. But the other category of people would be people in the industry, in the market, peer groups, and whatnot, where there's comfort to share. But you need to have a sense, right, of what that is. There's a third, more hackish way, which not everyone will have the appetite for, which is put yourself out in the job market, and go through the process and get the offers, Doesn't mean you have to take the offers, but you get a sense of the value, I have a friend who tells me that he literally applies for a job every year just to get a sense of his market value, to understand where his peers or his comparable employers might be offering to pay. The very first thing is, do you know what the market is paying? And it can be up, it can be down, right? I mean, that's the reality, because again, this is just economics, right? It's demand and supply. So I think that would be the first tip. Understand where you're at. And then what's the
to
room
add
play.
on that, right? So you mentioned 3 resources that people can go to find out their market value. How accurate do you find all those online salary guides?
I think
Where? Boom, boom.
yeah, can be it ranges from wildly inaccurate. It really very hard to say. I mean, wildly inaccurate to not too bad. I think very rarely you'll get one that's spot on. Yeah,
Industry standards.
Yeah, because the reality is that it moves a lot, right? I don't think that means that you don't take it on. I think in the end it's about a lot of this research. I mean, my view, collecting research is all about collecting data points and then attributing certain believability factor to each of them, and then taking it all and then saying, okay, when I look at all of it, what do I believe and where do I think it would be? And if you have a range of these data points, somewhere in the middle, usually it's not too far wrong.
I think a lot of people nowadays very lazy. They just go online, see the salary guide, and they use that as a singular data point,
can't,
right? So
no,
maybe
it's
what
tough.
they should really start looking at is, as you say, look at some of the other 3 other options to get
No,
a more
but
accurate sense.
I don't think laziness is carries in this discussion, like our audience are self-select. They will go and sort it out. They are not lazy in that sense. But I feel like a lot of people, right, don't know how to value their own worth, right? Like I have friends who work in HR, right? They lead the department, they know the costing and everything, right? And then they tell me things like, wow, some of these guys, right, 20, 30 years experience, right? They know a lot of people. They are very valuable to the company, right? But they are paid like the fresh grad because the fresh grad come in, the amount very big, that to take. Right, so which is why the starting salary is so important in a lot of organization, right? And then that become your reference point. I mean, we talked about this right on another episode, right? Should you review your salary right to the next hire, all that jazz, right? So I think that's the part that needs to be more talked about and add more color, right? A lot of senior workers are underpaid.
That's a very good point. Also, this thing that you just mentioned about how do employers or businesses look at a new hire versus an existing hire. Yeah. And the reality is that many businesses are very guilty of being quite good at being competitive at the new hire part because you're trying to attract someone to come on. But then somehow just not so good at doing that when it comes to reviewing and refreshing and retaining their existing staff. It's an age-old problem. That's one thing. And then the other one is, even if they are aware, a lot of employers are also kind of stuck in this then how do I redress it? Because then they're like, wow, do I immediately go and change all my legacy and existing stuff and then take on an additional X% in my payroll? And then they're very reluctant to do that, right? So even if they're aware, then they don't know how to fix it. So as a result, I think if you just flip it around again, then from the individual's perspective, right?
Keep moving.
Yeah. That's one option, but not the only option, right? Because I think if you understand where you're at, then you at least can have a conversation. Maybe which is probably the next question. No?
Yeah. How does the conversation go about?
Hey boss, the Google say I got more money on
boss would like to have a coffee with you. It's like, okay, what is it about? I know one. When people can talk to me, it's like, do you have some time? Can we talk about this? Yeah. Sure. And I know I know what you want to talk about, right? Yeah. Just be upfront with me.
It's a sales pitch, right? Actually, in the end, right? I mean, this is essentially that's kind of like an always be selling sort of thing, right? I mean, but honestly, this is really about how well you sell yourself. And I think if you understand, so that's probably tip number 2, right? Once you understand what your market value is, then you got to ask yourself, what is the value and the contribution that you bring to this employer? First of all, you need to be very clear about what is your contribution. What is it that you bring to the table? If you know what that is, then I think you can have a fair conversation with your bosses to say, okay, this is what I think. This is one way of answering the question, which comes back to my third point, right? Third tip, which is also have a consideration as to what does compensation mean to you, right? Because compensation, you can think about it as just it's cold hard cash, and do I get X today or should I get Y tomorrow? But I think there's also broader elements around like what other forms of compensation are there, and also what are the other things that keep me in a job or not. So the first one, I think I would say there are other elements. Of course, there's always this phrase compensation and benefits, C and B, right? There is and within compensation there's the cash component, there's the variable component, then there's elements today more and more popular is stock options, right? Equity.
Especially in tech.
No bonus, ma.
Oh, okay. Really?
I don't get bonus.
Okay. So how does that work? How does your compensation structure work?
Compensation is on base variable and then stock options based on certain key metrics.
Yeah. I mean, variations of that, right?
Yeah, and variations of that, obviously.
Okay. So how do I evaluate stock options then, if that's the case?
How to evaluate stock options, I think?
We need to talk more about it because I feel like a lot of our audience are in that bracket, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, to be fair, right, if you're entry level, you're junior, right, you better be some super talent, right? If not, this will unlikely be open to you. Or if you join some super small company, they have no choice but to give you some stock options, then you've got to question the value of it. Okay, but...
I mean, maybe I can start and
yes,
you add
please.
on, right?
Yes, go for it.
But it's like, I think it depends where the company is. Very, very important.
Correct.
If the company is listed,
it's public.
It's public.
Yeah.
It's public info. Immediately you can trade it also based on your vesting schedule, so on and so forth. But if it's Series A, if it's Series B, if it's Series C, still very early on, are we even going to consider that? Because when can we actually even take the money out, right? And those other clauses come into play as well, is what I would say. Like, for example, there is always a shareholder buyback clause when you move from D to E or E to F, or depending on what series, and depending on whether the anchor of that round is willing to do that as well, because the money's supposed to go and fund the company, but now I'm just paying the guys that have been here for quite a while. So I think these are things that we need to also be thinking about for an early stage. But I think for a later stage is when you can quantify it and actually say something. I mean,
Also, I mean, actually, I was going to start exactly as how Rakaesh did. It's really like how mature is the business, right? post-IPO public companies, very mature, a lot more straightforward is the truth, right? Because the valuation is set by the market, it's transparent to everyone, you can look it up. Go up, go down, you also know what it is, right? Early stage, I think the first point I would have mentioned is even the valuation number itself.
Yeah, quite or not.
It's very subjective, right? Because it is a closed, it's private transaction, it's closed market, and even if a group of people did value it at that price, because usually the valuation is set on the last round, does it necessarily mean that that's the valuation that it actually carries when you as an individual decide to put your options out to market? And then beyond that, Rakaesh also touched on all the technicalities of it, right? There's a lot of technicalities of it. And the honest truth is, I think today, the awareness and understanding of all the technical ways stock options work or don't work, the level is not very, very high in the market. That's what Glintz sees. We speak to a lot of job seekers and we work with a lot of startups, right? Early stage guys. The understanding is not that strong. And then because it's not that strong, right? Then the perception of it is also affected. Because then as a job seeker, you'll be like, oh, okay, so maybe this company is offering me $10,000 worth of stock options. But I don't know, I don't really fully understand how it vests. I don't really fully understand when can I liquidate. Then automatically I discount the value of this.
So it's good to have extra.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then you immediately revert back to this idea that, well, I should just be looking at the cash, which you can depend on how you want to look at it. From a very cynical point of view, you can say that's the way that then you preserve and protect yourself. But then from the other point of view, you would then say, maybe you're locking yourself out of certain opportunities. And then second of all, if you look at least as a precedence in the West, right, there's some maybe Chinese companies as well, right? There's some very strong evidence that ESOPs can produce a lot of upside when the company or organization is successful eventually. So my take on it would be get educated, right? At least understand how these things work.
So we are here to educate, right?
Okay.
We're here to educate. Yes, we take on the mantra, right?
Yeah.
So we take it step by step. Okay, let's talk about the companies that are already listed, right? So if let's say a company is already listed, there's already a market price, the discovery is there. You already know what's it. What do I look out for in a stock options kind of arrangement? What are the usual practices? What are the usual things that I need to be aware of?
A couple of things, right? I think one thing I want to point out before answering the question is you mentioned a few levers that we can pull. It's not just about that whole hard cash. So I think that I would like to touch on that a lot more as well, just so we as listeners can learn from this, right? But coming to your question on the point of IPO company already, the market price is there, right? We can effectively buy and sell on all the brokerage systems. When they give us an amount, it'll give us an amount, usually more than the number of shares. At least that's from my knowledge. From that amount, it will be vested over a few things. So a few things we need to take into account is something called the vesting period, which is how long before you actually get it. And if you leave before that, you're not going to get it. Right? Very important. Next thing is called a cliff. A cliff is a minimum period of your tenure in that company in order for you to even receive X dollar or 1 cent of the stock options. Typically, it's a 12-month cliff and a vesting period of about 4 years. But so for example, it'll be $10,000 that you will start receiving on the 12th. So you will start receiving $10,000 over 4 years, right? Which effectively means every year you're getting 2,500, right? Just to make it simple for everyone. But you won't receive anything if you leave in 11 months. But at 12 months, you will receive 2,500. And then after that is, what is the vesting schedule? Is it every month you receive 2,500 divided by 12? Or is it every quarter you receive 2,500 divided by 4? And so you got to look at that. And then as you leave, you will forego the remaining, say, 5,000 because you stayed for 2 years and you only take the 5,000.
Okay. And then more often than not, I can straight away just exit in the market if I want to.
IPO means you're issued the shares, correct? And you can sell it immediately.
Okay.
Those are no longer options.
Yeah,
It's just shares.
exactly. It's just shares, right? Okay. Fair,
and then the way you will want to value that, right, is also, of course, there's the current market price. You can look at that. But you can also look at it. And usually when it's issued to you, it will be issued at a slight discount to what the market is offering. So it makes it more valuable. Otherwise, it's just give you whatever the market you can buy, right? And then when you look at that, you need to think about you have to look at the growth prospects of the employer or that business. If you think it's a very fast growing business still, then it could be quite exciting because then you could look and think about it as, wow, maybe this one will grow 20 or 50% in the next X number of years. And I'm right now getting this at this value. So it's actually worth more than that. Conversely, you could be entering a very, very mature enterprise already. And then you then have to treat it as what it is, which is, okay, maybe this is, I get it at a 20% discount, so it is just maybe a 20% gain.
Difference between a scale up and Apple, for example.
Yeah. No,
Correct.
okay. Fair. So then if we're talking about like the private companies, right? Like Series B, Series C, Series A, I don't know lah. But like for all you listening that you don't know what are those, essentially these are private companies at the early stage, and it's used as a measurement of which round of funding these companies are going for to raise capital to grow their company, right? So after you Google a bit, you will know what Series A, Series B, aga, right? So essentially, how will you then evaluate a stock option? Let's say you're like the 10th employee, right? Like the first hire is different. First hire is sell passion one, use passion and work one, okay? It's different. But let's say you're the 10th employee, 20th employee, where there's already some sort of a structure, and then you enter, and then all these things are in discussion, or even the 100th employee, right? Like how do I then evaluate a private company's stock options?
I think again it's very subjective, right? But just as a rule of thumb, if you can just think about it, exponentially the risk does drop. It's an exponential curve. It's not linear. Seed or pre-seed or A is a lot higher. Then by the time you get to B, what does B stage mean? By the time you get to Series B, the conventional wisdom is that a company or a startup has achieved a certain product market fit and is now ready to scale up and ramp up its sales. So if you have achieved product market fit, actually, it's quite a big milestone to reach. So your conviction level should be already at a certain level. Of course, please go and understand the business model of the company that you're joining. You have to make your own judgment assessment. But that's essentially the judgment that's been imposed by the investors, right? And then by the time you get to Series C and D, right? CD stage is typically what's regarded as you're kind of like preparing for IPO. So CD stage businesses are already relatively mature already, just on the edge of going to public. So I would say at that point, you can say that the valuation is becoming more and more, the conviction level is...
Risk is lower.
Yeah, much lower. Okay. That said, right, I mean, we should also remember that the last few years we have seen a situation where many businesses also went to IPO even pre-profit.
No choice.
Yeah.
No choice.
Different environment.
Exit the market, try to
They
raise whatever
play the
funds
game
they
also,
can.
going by spec
The spec. Yeah, reverse.
So that's an important qualifier to mention, right? Because with that in play, right, then even the IPO price may not hold.
A bit
right?
lame. A bit lame.
Yeah, which happened in several instances. But essentially, that's the modifier, right? That you have to then probably apply on top of this. Then then after that, IPO already.
Okay. And you join Glintz at B.
Yeah.
Right. So once there's a market fit, you decide to join them.
I mean, it's not I decide to join. It's also the fact that they were looking at that point, B stage, they needed to ramp up their sales effort. So I essentially joined like a VP sales, right?
And go back to the pay package. So aside from the ESOPs, aside from the hard cash.
Sorry, not ESOP. This is effectively like a stocks given based on salary package. ESOP is a separate
Options,
it's a separate thing, which is another lever that you could technically use. It stands
what's the
for
difference?
employee stock option purchase.
So you have a right to purchase.
You can take money out of your salary, which is withheld, and they will buy stocks for you at a discounted price. This is not vested. Immediately you get the money.
Right.
Thing.
Whereas the one we're talking about is they give
Correct.
you with the vesting period. So that's the
Correct.
differentiator.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your chief financial coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm. But even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Now back to the show.
Okay, so with those two out of the way, there's also the intangibles that you're talking about, right? What should people be looking at and how should we value that?
Okay, so before intangibles, there's also benefits. So I said CMB, right? Compensation and benefits. So there's still the benefits part of it. So benefits, of course, there's a lot of the conventional stuff around insurance, right?
Corporate insurance are one of the best, I just say.
Right.
There's a lot of coverage that on a personal level you cannot get, but when you buy as a group, right, as a corporate, you do
Correct.
get a lot of those things.
Yes.
Correct. Today, on top of corporate insurance, there's also increasingly stuff like learning benefits, so allowances.
I don't know if people think that's a benefit lah.
Yeah.
Hey, budget 就是要读册
Government also give it. It's called Skills Future. Correct.
Okay. Upskill. Woo, upskill. Woo.
That shows up quite a lot. I think we also see things like wellness.
Oh yeah,
Kind of
frou one, the frou one.
Yeah.
Namaste, the gong therapy.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Actually, more and more we're getting is TCM.
Oh, that's right, yeah. That's right.
Unlimited TCM.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, I think that the insurance guys are also baking that
part of
into
the insurance.
part
Yeah,
of the
of
plans.
course.
So I think benefits, also quite top of mind. And then if you start to move into more intangible type of stuff, of course, I think people look for stuff like, I think two things have come up a lot, especially in the post-pandemic days. The first one is a lot of people have had a lot of, and then I say a lot of people because Glintz, we speak to a lot of job seekers and we run our own surveys, right? So we found that I think within the top 3 reasons for what people look for when they shift a job, compensation always is there, okay, for sure. But then what showed up, I think, post-pandemic was just like sense of alignment of purpose and culture, right? It's one of those things that I think, especially maybe a lot of reflection time during the lockdown days and whatnot, people start to revalue what's important to them and that kind of thing. So, this idea of purpose, culture, impact, start to come up quite a lot more. So that's number 2. Then I think number 3
was
flexible.
whether it's work.
She's a
W
big champion of it.
office,
Yes,
flexible work
for mummies
arrangements.
are very
Yeah.
important. Yes.
Yeah, but that one I would say the job seeker, there's a bit of a job seeker employer gap lah. Yeah, gap.
Oh, in what
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. I think more and more what's happening is that as we move further and further away from the memories of COVID-19, right? Although I think recently that's being a
Now
bit
got
challenged.
new wave,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
not really move
New
away
wave,
already.
Yeah. Stress.
Yeah.
Yes.
But essentially, I think employers are also kind of nudging and pushing a bit more for a return to
office.
pre-COVID work arrangements,
Yes,
yeah.
return to office full time, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Do you think that should be valued in a more monetary basis though? Because I don't know about you guys, but for me, if I were to go back into the job market, I have a corporate job. And if I'm not given the option to work from home, then I wouldn't even consider it. Immediately goes off my list. So I wouldn't necessarily attribute a value or a benefit to it, but it's more of it's a non-negotiable now. It needs to be there.
Okay. If I pay you more, is it negotiable?
Not
just curious.
Not at this stage of my life
Okay,
because of the young
fair,
kids,
fair.
right?
Yes,
But I
yes.
guess if the kids are in school already, then that's something that I could be more flexible
Because
about.
the school already tahan 6 hours of your kids, right? And then you got more time to do. Okay,
But I guess the question here is should job seekers, because to the employers, I'm sure they see that as a so-called cost, right? Because they can't manage you in person and there's different things that they need to put into place for you to be able to work from home. But should the employer's perspective is that this is an extra cost for me to let you have that flexibility. But the job seeker, they're like, no, I just want it. I don't see it as an extra value. How do we bridge that gap? Should that be part of the salary discussions
This
and
is probably
negotiation?
one of the most controversial
It
topics.
is.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking about it
Yeah.
today.
I mean, I heard that employees from a certain tech company quit because they were asked to go back twice a week and they didn't want to.
I think that is not unique. I think there are many instances of this that we know of. What I would say is that at least I have my view and my position on this is that I think it's again demand and supply. It's about where the market forces are, right? And I think if you look at Singapore, I think what you will see is that a lot of the smaller businesses that are divided into 2 camps. There is a new school camp, which still tends to be very pro flexibility.
Oh, raise hand,
Yes,
this
raise
way.
hand.
Join PSC, right?
Thank you. I welcome your resume here. If you're an editor, you can do BD. You're happy to explore. Yes, come here. Yes.
But then there's also the old school SMB, right? Which I think almost by default, as far as I know, right, virtually everyone is back
It's true.
and it's full time back.
The uncle boss very stressed
Yeah.
to see nobody in the office. How
Full-time
come
back.
不做工? Right, yeah.
So then where will the needle swing, right? I think it really depends actually. Everyone's looking at the big employers.
Yeah.
So who are the big employers? The government, the government companies, the MNCs. I think where the big employers choose to indicate will dictate which way the market swing.
But even now, the big employers are swinging, right? They've gone from okay, you guys can work from home.
Yeah.
And then Twitter and Google and the rest are all pulling back. Okay,
Yeah.
come back to office. So it's so hard to tell where the...
My take is that I think they are actually
They all want to come
Bring
back,
it back.
to be fair.
Yeah,
Is
they're
it to
bringing back.
justify cost of real estate?
It's not about that, I think. I think,
Yeah.
of course, there's a, the commercial real estate guys will like to hear that, lah, right?
Shout out to you all.
Nice office and utilize it. Give them dipping pots.
Hey, they're quite charmed, I think, commercial real
Very
estate
charmed,
guys.
very charmed.
very
Yes,
charmed,
it
Yes.
yeah.
I'm in contact with some of them, so I know they're very charmed.
Very
yes,
charmed,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Life is hard.
But I think actually it's more about two things. The first might still be a bit controversial, which is productivity, right? And of course, there's this debate about which roles can or cannot be productive on a remote basis. Then a second, which I think is less debated but should actually be talked about a lot more, is culture and integration. Right? I think large companies, actually need to build a sense of cohesion, identity, organizational belonging. It's important not just for the fuzzy, the good feels, right, and vibes. It's actually important for the longevity of the organization. It's what helps them to survive and grow and develop into the future, the long term.
Fair. I mean,
And
as a
Yeah.
small-time employee, right? As a small-time employer, I can kind of get it,
Yeah.
right? Especially for new hires,
Yeah,
right? So fresh grads, very new hires, they're horrible at remote work.
correct.
You'd be surprised. You would think like these guys are digital first, right?
There was a whole generation of workers who basically came out of school and then went straight into remote work, never understood the idea of what an office is.
yeah.
And what is pantry talk or
Yeah.
what's an office Christmas party.
Yeah.
No such
Water
idea.
cooler talk.
Yeah. No. And it's not just about the soft things, right?
Yeah.
It's just the reality that when you exit the school
Yeah.
and you enter into the job market,
Yeah.
everything is an A.
Yeah.
You must target for an A. It's not a pass.
Yeah.
Sometimes in school, we prioritize some project A, some projects B, pass, whatever, So you kind of give yourself a bit of lax, right? But when you come to the work culture, right, everything's expected to be A. Whether you're here or not, that's a different story, right? So the grind is quite different. And I would argue that a lot of Gen Zs have no work ethics, right? Because they don't have that kind of reframing and it's all,
Foundations wasn't there.
it's all an education process, right? So when they come in, they have all sorts of weird things, like meetings can late, like, hey, sorry bro, we're not your friend, right? I'm
The
here
norms
to
are- norms are not
So
there.
the norms are not set up. In fact, a lot of the like mummies, right, or a lot of the elder workers, right, they are best, in the remote work
They will
setting.
show
They are
up.
great.
Yeah.
Firstly, they highly appreciate this thing, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. It's true, right? I mean,
Visa.
Mummies, I meant mummies.
Mummies, not aunties. Aunties for another topic. Okay, but but I think they appreciate it and they have a decent work ethic. They have like a workflow and they have a muscle to work. They know how to
that's the
work.
productivity angle.
Yeah.
I think
So I think there's a good element to that. Like I remember I had to teach the junior how to work. I had to draw a PPT, record things, go through multiple discussion.
No, because
okay.
once upon a time, these things were kind of like by diffusion, right?
Yes.
You show at the same time, like,
Yeah,
if I look at the
it's
guy
true.
doing that, then I'll just copy.
It's
right?
true,
Yeah,
it's true.
right.
Then you are attached to a buddy, right?
Yeah.
Then you ask your senior, hey, how
Correct.
this one, how
Correct.
But in a remote setting, it's a bit different because
Correct.
every
It
time
is.
you send
Yeah.
a message, right, it's not casual.
Yeah.
It's quite. It's people
Correct.
perk up when they
Correct.
see messages, right? So
Yeah.
so so that is a reality that I
And
think I
true, right?
struggle
Because like
also.
even to ramp up, when you're a new employee, no matter where you are,
Yeah,
there is an adjustment phase.
yeah.
It's a lot faster when everybody's in the office. Right?
Yeah.
Like
It's a lot
for
faster.
example, I'm in sales. So pre-COVID, we were on the floor. We're hearing what other people say.
Yeah.
Immediately, you're just picking it up, right?
Get it,
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
that's good. I'm gonna use it
That
on my
line,
next
right?
call
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
immediately apply it.
Yeah.
Now
yeah.
you purposely must go and like, hey, this one must go and listen lah. Or if you're not proactive enough to do it,
Yeah.
how are you
Yeah.
gonna learn, right?
Yeah, it's true. So,
Exactly.
So I get the limitations as a small time employer. I get the limitations of the remote work structure. As much as I love it, my guys can work anywhere. They can do a lot of what they want. But culture fit is a problem. Reframing some of their old habits is a problem. Building new work ethics. Building strong work ethics for new hire is also very hard. Right, so I understand the managerial,
The uncle is
operational
coming out,
challenges.
right?
Yeah.
The uncle.
We know the uncle. We know the uncle.
Cancer. Right, I tell you that. No, these are operational realities. Right? I think it's very hard, but we will figure as we go along, and if need be, there needs to be like some periodic cohesion.
Yeah,
or
so I do
something,
think the needle will move towards. It's just a matter of time, I think, because of course the instances that Rakaesh mentioned earlier about now there are also some employees who just say, then I'll just quit lah, right?
Mm.
So it's all kind of everyone's kind of watching each other and seeing who will take the first move, right? But you can already see, I think there's some movements already. I think Singtel just announced, right? Not too long ago. Yeah.
Must go back
I think either must go back or
twice a week or 3 times a
pretty
week.
pretty hard rule that's coming out already. So once you see that, and then once some of the big boys start moving, the rest will move along with the herd, right?
Yeah. It's kind of what it is lah. Okay, interesting.
Let's go back to the negotiation of the conversation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we're
we digress
doing
a bit.
that. Digress too long already.
Yeah.
So we have asked the boss or your manager out for the coffee. And we all know that we should be planning, right, and staging it before we go for that to increase our chances because it is a sales page. What can the job employee that prepare? What can we do to increase our chances? And are there like some language can say versus cannot say? I cannot say, hey, you must pay me more because I just talked to my other partner. Why you pay him 30% and I lesser? This kind of cannot say, right?
Of course, this one cannot say
Yeah,
lah. If you
so
like
it's
that talk to me,
cannot-
right? I tell
not
you,
so
okay, you
nice.
can balik kampung already. Okay, I tell you, it's
Yeah,
really.
so what are some tips that they can use to have in this conversation?
I always say, I go back to emphasizing it's about what value and what contribution you bring. I think sometimes people believe that it's about telling the needs part of it. That's almost a sad story part of it, like why I need it. From an employer's perspective, I think there can be empathy and for that kind of perspective, but it wouldn't be the reason.
Yeah,
as
take
to-
your sob story elsewhere. We're not a
Yeah.
charity, right?
Yeah, it'll be more about
I never say that.
We
You
have
should
an
say-
episode that says your work is not family member.
Yes,
This is
yes,
where
yes.
we
Your
link
work
it in
is not
comments
family.
below. But yes.
but it'll be more about what do you add? What do you add to the organization? And if you're confident, and you have to be confident. So in a way, you have to think this is my proposal to the business, right? Look, I add value, and I understand that this is what the market is looking at right now, and there's a case for it, right? And I think as with any negotiation, as with any sales pitch, I think if you are prepared to accommodate the other side's perspective, that's also very important. So do you understand if your current business is in the position to make that adjustment for you? If yes, great. If no, what are their blockers, right? What is your boss's blocker to enabling this for you? Is it that it's a timing thing? It cannot be done immediately. It must follow a certain cycle. Maybe you are able to accommodate that cycle. Is it that maybe a variability to it, performance-based, will help things a lot more? So if you are prepared to negotiate and you think through these things a bit, that will of course enable the conversation a lot better, right?
Yes, so for that conversation to be really successful, it requires both parties to listen and open up and have empathy. But sometimes, right, you will also understand that as the employee, we're of a lower position because we don't really have that full bargaining power. And sometimes what the manager or the employer does is really just excuse. Actually, they say they no budget, but they really have budget. For the employee, how do they suss out the difference? It's so hard. Right? Sometimes they say, I need you to go through this first, then you can get there. But maybe that's just all an excuse to try and, pay them lower for a more prolonged period of time. How to suss?
The way I would do it is you have to take everything at face value. I feel there's no extra need to have extra time spent on, this one sus or not. Because I believe you should just take it at face value. What you need is leverage. And what he just mentioned is go and find some. Whether it be market, market fees, where you are in the market, whether it is
Get
how
another
much-
job offer, put it on the table. Match not.
Correct.
You gotta match it,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
Or for
It's like
example,
twist the employer. yeah, which happens.
okay, that is a much softer way to do that. But luck
It
you.
happens.
Softer ways to do it.
Yeah,
Correct,
it
right?
happens.
But along the lines of, hey, I'm bringing XXX revenue to your business.
Yeah.
But yet I feel undervalued. Like, there's an emotional angle that you can play. The nice guy approach.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways about it.
I've
and it depends
received
on how you're doing
PPT slides before. It's like, oh, this is what I've done, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, thank you. Give me some time.
Yeah.
I will process these thoughts.
Yeah. And I think it's fair, I mean, if an employer asks for time
Yeah.
to come back to you, I think it's all fair, to be honest. I think the reality is that these decisions, in most instances, I mean, some of us work for directly the business owner or sole proprietor or whatever. Maybe it's like that, it's just that person's decision. But even that person will only take time, right? But in most instances, actually, there are other stakeholders involved as well.
Yeah, it's true. I feel like sometimes, that's why I support you because it's quite stressful. Because every time you want to pay raise, then essentially you're adjusting my revenue targets, right?
Correct, your margins,
Right,
all
so
of that.
everything
Yeah.
is getting affected. So you must give me some time. right? And if you really think I'm not moving, then it's okay lah,
Yeah.
right? Like you know, but I feel like sometimes the stacking process, because it's like you put something on the table, and then you expect me to reply, you know, but I got 101 things to do, right? It's not that you're not important, you know, it's just that I got 101 things to do. Give me some time, right? Eventually I will come back, you know, but sometimes it gets a bit interesting, like how things play out. So it's a thing, right? Shout out to all you bosses, life's very hard, I know.
So showing the revenue generation is one thing. I think another common angle that I've seen being used is the cost saving. So justifying that by doing this, I've added value in this way because I wasn't in a revenue generating role. I have helped the business to save like X dollars of money, and that can also be a leverage.
Actually, this is the part, right, that I want to call out. You know, I find it a bit problematic because a lot of people think like that. Right, a lot of people in the middle office, back office, they think like that, right?
Which is not surprising if they're not in the revenue
exactly,
generating
right?
roles,
So they're not in the revenue gen. They look at these things, right, and then they put out that as their value, right? So what actually happens is when you spend less, you compromise on some things, right? You compromise on the vendors that you can use. You compromise on the software integrations that you can play around with. You compromise on some of these other things, right? So as much as you think like you create value for the company, you know, by cost cutting, which is fair. In actuality, what the company want is the funnel to be stronger, right? They want more traction. They want your participation in this organization to be able to support sales conversion, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's something to be called out for this. Not that it's wrong. It's just that is the industry standards that I find quite problematic.
So what is the different leverage then that
So
these
no, for
people
me
can use?
that's not enough. If someone comes and says I've cost cut, I'm not a business owner or anything, right? But if someone comes to me, cost cut, I'm like, okay, great. What you should be angling is I've improved your profits.
Yeah. So
Cost cut is nothing.
Yeah.
But what's my margin increase?
No, it's not just about that. Not that cost cut is nothing. It's just sometimes cost cutting is dangerous.
No, correct.
Okay, because I've talked to many people in different organizations, right? That because they want to cost cut, they refuse to use the latest infrastructure. They refuse to use the latest things, you know, and they like especially in like social media, you know, all that, right? All your social media guys, right? They tell you, we cost cut, we cut on vendors, blah 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 blah. But actually, what I need, right, is your reach, your numbers, your followers, right? I need that, right? But you cannot give me that. You give me an inferior, you know, metrics of cost cutting, right?
I think I would propose a slight different a different framing of this, right? I think it's, you know, again going back to, it's actually a sale, right? And being good sales is you have to understand what is the pain point. So what is on the business's mind? What is the business's objective? If the business is concerned about revenue generation, then of course the value is about how do you enable that.
Correct.
If the business is concerned about improving reach, then the value is how do you
Enable
contribute towards that, right? So it's, first of all, I think you gotta be empathetic and be good listener to and understanding as to what the other side is thinking.
Fair. I think that
Yeah,
okay.
that's a
So
really good reframing.
that's
Yeah.
good. So to be fair, that would be great in a restructuring process. Cost cutting, because actually cost cutting at that level is fucking difficult.
Yeah.
I think
It's
it's also
very
because
painful.
people are really just stuck in the sense that I need to show that either I added money or I save money. So then they go one of these two routes. But like you said, there's a middle ground, which is what is the pain point and how does that align? Yeah. It may
What
not
does the
always be
company care
about the
about
money.
at that moment in time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe it's not even those two camps. It's how much value have I added and what sort of value.
Which is built upon what the company wants, right? Because they are the parameter of like
Yeah,
what constitute value, right?
And let's open up a discussion also to talk about one. So we'll talk about what not to do, how to create that, to identify the pain points and leverage and create our sales pitch to get that money. Maybe we can all share, how have we in our own careers been able to get a pay raise?
I think same. I think more from employer side.
Yeah, I have an employer view of this.
I can start first. I mean, I'm the employee side.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that really helped me was really recognizing my value because in the first job that I went to, I was very, very underpaid. And I actually tried to have that conversation. I built up the entire case. Then newbie don't know, right? So go and Google how to negotiate for higher pay. They got the tips and then created an entire PowerPoint presentation. And then I was in a revenue generating role. So I used that to justify, hey, I've made the business like, was it 10 or 20x of my salary? And I'm hoping for a 20% or 25% increase, which I believe is aligned with the market. But then immediately, like, I got that pushback, and then it just felt like a lot of excuses. So and the worst thing was it was very badly handled in the sense that my I was actually, instead of raising, they told me that I did not hit my revenue targets, which was a lie. Okay, so in the end, it was very ugly. I left in the end, and then shortly after I left, the whole company collapsed. So I guess it was a good thing that I got out of a sinking ship. But by leaving and joining their competitor, I immediately increased my salary by, I believe it was 30 or 40%. Yeah. So that was really, and it wasn't me going to their competitor first. It was really just having that conversation because I liked the company and I thought I would be able to stay. But because of how they handled that discussion, it was very bad. And I felt like if I were to stay on, I wouldn't be happy because seeing how they responded, plus knowing that I am very, very underpaid. So moving on would be better. So I moved on to the second role. I got the pay increment. My next increment then came in when I jumped to my third role because when I moved from my second to my third, I was changing industries. And the boss matched my salary. Okay, which I took it because, well, I need to learn again from a new industry. So I'm okay. I'll just take it as a discount. Okay, I'll learn. And then once I really ramped up and I was more comfortable and more confident in the job, what happened was that a competitor came to me and offered. Yeah, then I was like, oh, you mean I should be higher? So I went to my boss, but I didn't take it up. I didn't go for the interview. I just went to my boss and said like, hey, I want to be really transparent. A competitor approached me. I haven't done anything, but they offered me this. I'm just wondering, maybe we could have a chat about my discussion to find out what is the role that you see me growing into. How can we move upwards and what can we do to get there so that we can have a next conversation about ramping up my pay to maybe being a bit more on par with what the market is. And my boss was very nice. Immediately, he just asked me, just tell me, are you staying or leaving? And I said, I have no intention to leave right now because I haven't even gone for the interview. I'm just being very transparent telling you. Yeah. And he appreciated that. So immediately, without even negotiating with me, he sprung a surprise on me the next week. And I got the exact pay match. And I was like, oh, and that cemented my decision to work for him forever. And then sadly, owners sell the companies. So eventually, I didn't get to work for him forever because he sold the company and then things moved on. But yeah, that was my story of how I went from a X amount to 30% higher and then like much, much higher after that. Yeah. And I thought that was actually, I don't know, but on hindsight, especially after you shared that nugget of that story, maybe it was in the way that I communicated it. Just that the first employer, even though I kind of communicated it in the same way, they didn't take it very well.
No, they're sinking, ma.
Yeah.
How to take it well? It's
Maybe
it's only a grind.
Yeah.
It's what it is. Like it's hard.
Yeah. So that's what I found was useful instead of like telling them or making them feel like I'm using it to like bargain and threaten you because I want to leave. Pay me or I'll leave. It was more of a I had this offer. I've been told about this. I'm not really thinking of leaving yet, but can we have an open conversation?
Yeah. No, I actually have something to add, right? So I think a lot of people, when you put yourself up in the job market, sometimes your price is a bit high, right? Then the company will come back with a slightly lower price, right? So that means they never give you what you're expecting right from the get-go. Of course, if they give you, then you take away, no choice, no room for discussion, right? But if they never give you what you expect, that means there's a bit of a difference, right? Actually, you can ask them, you can counter, and then they may counter you, right? Because actually, by the time they get to the end tail of the hiring process, right, they really don't want to start again.
Yes.
Or they don't want to kind of like go back 2 steps and get the 4-5 people back and talk another round. So most HR have a buffer, at the end where they negotiate because it's all a negotiation process, right? So they go in, they must have some bullet, right? And then, what I think a lot of Singaporeans don't realize is actually you can push further. And if they really cannot, they will tell you they really cannot. This is my max, right? And then maybe they'll give you like maybe a bit of like more, like, whatever, like whatever side things that they can give you. And I think there's some validity in that thought process.
I think it does go back to this. That's why we say at the point of entering a company, that's probably your bargaining position is probably your strongest.
Yes, very strong.
Strongest
very
at the
strong.
start.
Yes,
Within once you're in the everything, there's all sorts of reasons why it starts to change. The dynamics change a bit, and it becomes a little bit more challenging. But that also doesn't mean that. Therefore, I wouldn't give advice and say you then keep hopping, right? Because then you keep hopping.
But then we get to use Glintz a lot.
It's okay, guys.
No,
It's
no, no,
okay.
no, no, no.
No need to sponsor plug.
Yeah,
Okay.
no need.
Yeah. Relax. Yeah.
I
yeah.
think genuinely I go back to, I think my advice would be, think about what you're really looking for in your job and your career. I think there was a different instance when we were talking about like having certain goals, right?
Yeah.
I think if you have certain ideas about what your goals are in the next maybe 5, if 10 years, if you can, and then what you want to get there, and then you consider as to whether your current job or your prospective job, and therefore your current employer or your prospective employer actually help you to get there. I think that's a better way of thinking, and compensation is just but one of the things that feature in your considerations. It cannot be the only thing. I think, of course, you want it to be fair. You don't want to be underpaid because you will always feel like, wow, then we're undervalued. So it needs to be of a certain level. But then it cannot be the only thing. And I think a more holistic view towards that from a job seeker or a individual's perspective, I think actually will lead to longer term success, because ultimately then you kind of like, you're thinking, what is it that I will feel satisfaction about, right? Right?
It's weird because like like most tech companies almost a transparent promotion cycle. At least that's what we know for the bigger tech companies. For example, you know what your metrics is to get promoted. Your manager cannot even stop it. You hit those metrics, you get promoted. Right? So I think internally that's what the tech companies look at, because you get promoted based on the value you provide. And they've listed that value really nicely for every level. But when looking at a new company, it's always that trying to find that sort of leverage. You want me more, I want you more, right? And obviously if they come to you, they want you more.
Yeah.
But if you want them more and don't want to show it, you would go through a recruiter, because at least there is a mediator. They let them go and handle whatever, and then at least you can fight that accordingly. That's my plan, and then show them what value you can provide.
Interesting.
Sales
interesting.
process.
Yeah, it's all a sales
Yeah.
process.
Everything
And
is about sales.
Yeah, it's
One
all,
thing-
it's all sales.
It all sales.
Yes,
It all
yes,
sales.
yes.
One more thing is knowing your levers. It's so important.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Okay, you cannot pay me $10,000 more, but you can give me signing bonus. But you can give me more ESOP, or you can give me more stocks.
Correct.
Like, can you get it in other manners, right?
Yeah.
So
Fair. I've quite, because we run a small outfit, right, a very small outfit. So there's only a handful of us, right? So my parameter of thought is very different from a big organization. My first parameter of thought is, if this person go, how much probably is it going to cost me? Right?
cost of replacement.
Yeah, not just cost of replacement. It's like, how important are you in this organization? How entrenched and intertwined are you in the team? Right. So if immediately I can say like, this person, never mind lah. Right. That means I will just drop a few projects. They are not my biggest priority, and then I just kind of narrow down my focus. Then highly unlikely you have any leverage on the organization, because we are a small team. We don't have like a big team to like kind of go through all these things, right? So if you want to negotiate, for a higher salary, right, do a lot more. That's as simple as I can tell you. If you're important in the organization, you get it.
Yeah, but you flip it around, it goes back to, do you understand what's the value you bring, right?
Yeah.
What's the value you bring to the company?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if your answer is you don't know, or
Yeah.
you're not sure if it's a lot, then maybe you should work a lot harder.
Yeah.
Or go and find out.
Nice. Okay, so that's it. I appreciate the discussion. Thank you. Thanks for supporting the boss angle a bit. Yeah. Let's continue this discussion another time. Okay, take care, guys. Bye.